The unwanted discovery. The research station hung in the darkness like a metal flower, its silver petals stretching toward distant stars. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the observation window, her breath fogging the cold glass. She had spent 3 years in this lonely place, studying the empty reaches of space that no one else cared about. The Kepler belt was supposed to be dead, just rocks and ice floating in the void. She was supposed to confirm that and go home. Instead, she had found something impossible. The signal had started 6 months ago. At first, Sarah thought it was a glitch in her equipment. Strange pulses of energy, coming from a cluster of asteroids, rhythmic and deliberate. She ran every test she could think of. She checked her instruments 100 times. But the signal remained, constant and clear. Something was out there. Something that was trying to communicate. Sarah sent her report to Earth Command, but they ignored her. They always ignored her. She was just a young scientist on a forgotten station, chasing shadows in the dark. Tonight was different. Tonight, the signal had changed. It was louder now, more urgent. Sarah's hands trembled as she adjusted her scanners. The asteroids were moving, shifting into patterns that nature could never create. Her screen filled with data that made no sense. Energy readings that broke every law of physics she knew. Temperature fluctuations that should have been impossible in the vacuum of space. And then, without warning, the asteroids began to unfold. Sarah stumbled backward, her heart hammering in her chest. The rocks were not rocks at all. They were pieces of something massive, something ancient. Metal surfaces gleamed in the starlight, as the pieces locked together like a puzzle solving itself. Within minutes, a structure emerged that dwarfed her entire station. It was a ship, but not like any ship humanity had ever built. Its surface was covered in symbols that seemed to shift and flow, like living things. Lights pulsed along its hull in colors that hurt to look at. Sarah knew, with cold certainty, that she was looking at something from beyond human understanding. Her communication system crackled to life. Static filled her ears, and then a voice emerged from the noise. It was not human. The sounds were too deep, too layered, like multiple beings speaking at once. But somehow, impossibly, Sarah understood the meaning behind the words. The translation was rough, broken. But the message was clear. They were called the architects. They had been sleeping for 1,000 years. And they wanted to know who had woken them. Sarah's training took over. She activated the emergency beacon, sending a desperate message to Earth. She recorded everything her sensors could capture. She prepared for first contact, even though she had no idea what that meant. The architect's ship moved closer to her station, its massive form blocking out the stars. Sarah could see details now that made her mind reel. The ship was not just metal and circuits. It was grown, like something alive. Organic tubes ran through mechanical structures. Crystalline formations pulsed with inner light. This was technology, so advanced that it looked like magic. The voice spoke again, and this time Sarah understood it better. The architects were angry. They had been placed in this region of space as guardians, watching over a dangerous anomaly that could destroy entire star systems. Their sleep was sacred, their mission critical. But someone had disturbed their rest, Someone had sent probes into their territory. Someone had broken ancient laws that humanity did not even know existed. The architects demanded answers. They demanded to meet the leaders of this young species that dared to intrude on their domain. Sarah tried to explain. She told them about humanity's exploration programs, about Earth's desperate need to expand beyond its dying world. She said that humans meant no harm, that they did not know anyone lived out here. But the architects did not care about intentions. They cared about actions. They had detected human mining operations on the edge of their space. They had recorded human ships passing through forbidden zones. Humanity had crossed too many lines, and now there would be consequences. The station shook as the architect ship released a pulse of energy. Sarah's equipment went haywire, screens flickering with warnings and alerts. But nothing was damaged. This was a demonstration, a show of power. The architects could destroy her station with a thought. They could erase every trace of human presence in this sector. But they were giving humanity one chance, one opportunity to explain itself. They would come to Earth. They would meet with human leaders. And if they did not like what they found, they would remove humanity from the stars forever. Sarah watched through her window as more ships began to appear. Dozens of them, materializing from nowhere like ghosts becoming solid. Each one was different, shaped for purposes she could not guess. Some were long and sleek like spears. Others were massive spheres covered in spinning rings. A few looked like nothing she could describe, their forms hurting her eyes when she tried to focus on them. This was not a diplomatic mission. This was a fleet. The architects were preparing for war. Her communication system buzzed with incoming messages from Earth. They had received her beacon. They were scrambling their defense forces. Politicians and generals were arguing about what to do. Some wanted to attack first, to show strength. Others wanted to negotiate, to buy time. But Sarah knew the truth that terrified her to her core. Humanity's weapons, their best ships, their most advanced technology. All of it was like children's toys, compared to what she was seeing. The architects had been traveling the stars when humans were still living in caves. If they wanted humanity gone, there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. The voice spoke one final time, before going silent. The architects would arrive at Earth in 7 days. They would anchor their ships above the major cities. They would demand an audience with all human leaders. And they would judge humanity's worthiness to exist among the stars. Sarah slumped in her chair, exhaustion and fear washing over her. She had wanted to make history with her research. She had dreamed of discovering something amazing. Now she had done exactly that, and it might mean the end of everything. Outside her window, the architect fleet began to move. They oriented themselves toward Earth, toward the blue world that humanity called home. Sarah could only watch as they prepared to jump through space, to cross the distance that would take human ships months in mere days. The station felt very small suddenly, very fragile. She was alone in the darkness, and she had just invited the storm. The 7 days of fear. Earth had never seen anything like it. Within hours of Sarah's message, every screen on the planet showed the same images. The architect fleet, captured by long-range telescopes, moving through space like a swarm of mechanical stars. News organizations ran constant coverage. Scientists appeared on every channel, trying to explain what they were seeing. Most of them failed. The technology on display was so far beyond human understanding that words became meaningless. All anyone knew for certain was that something powerful was coming, and it did not look friendly. President Marcus Williams sat in the Emergency Command Center beneath the White House, surrounded by military advisors and world leaders, connected through secure video feeds. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been elected to solve economic problems and climate issues. He had never expected to face alien contact. Now, with 7 days until the architects arrived, he had to make decisions that would affect all of humanity. The room was filled with arguments and fear. Everyone talking at once, no one agreeing on anything. General Sarah Okonkwo, head of Earth Defense Forces, stood at the front of the room with a grim expression. She had spent her entire career preparing for threats from space, asteroids, enemy nations, rogue satellites. But not this. Her fleet consisted of 300 ships, the pride of human engineering. They could travel between planets, carry devastating weapons, defend against most threats. But against the architects, she knew they were useless. Her analysis was clear and brutal. One architect ship could probably destroy her entire fleet. They were facing dozens. Across the world, people reacted in different ways. Some rioted in the streets, looting and destroying in the belief that the end was coming. Others flocked to churches and temples, praying to their gods for salvation. Scientists worked around the clock, trying to analyze every bit of data from the architect ships, searching for any weakness. Engineers proposed desperate plans, weapons that existed only in theory, strategies that might buy humanity a few more hours. But everyone knew the truth. Humanity was not ready for this. They had been caught unprepared, exposed as the young species they truly were. Dr. James Park, Earth's leading xenobiologist, reviewed everything known about the architects with growing dread. The symbols on their ships matched patterns found in ancient ruins on Mars and Europa. Ruins that humanity had assumed were natural formations. Now it was clear those ruins were warnings, markers left by the architects to claim their territory. Humanity had ignored them, too arrogant to believe that anything could have been here before them. Dr. Park's conclusion was sobering. The architects were not invaders. Humanity was. Earth had stumbled into someone else's domain and broken rules they never knew existed. On day 3, the architects sent their first message directly to Earth. Every electronic device on the planet received it simultaneously. Computers, phones, televisions, even simple radios, all displayed the same text in hundreds of languages. The message was formal and cold. The architects identified themselves as the original shepherds of this region of space. They listed the violations humanity had committed: unauthorized mining operations in protected zones, military vessels in forbidden space, disruption of ancient monitoring systems. The list went on and on. Each item a reminder of how recklessly humanity had expanded. The message ended with a demand. Earth would prepare representatives to speak for their entire species. These representatives would explain humanity's actions and plead their case. The architects would listen, and then they would render judgment. If humanity was found guilty of deliberate aggression, they would be removed from space entirely. All human ships would be destroyed. All space stations would be dismantled. Humanity would be confined to Earth for the next 1,000 years to think about what they had done. If they resisted, more severe measures would be taken. The message did not specify what those measures were, but the implication was clear. Extinction was on the table. President Williams selected his delegation carefully. He chose scientists, diplomats, military leaders, and philosophers. People who could speak about humanity's past, present, and future. People who could argue for humanity's right to exist among the stars. But he knew it was probably useless. The architects had already made up their minds. This was not a trial. It was a sentencing. Still, Williams refused to give up. Humanity had survived ice ages and plagues, wars and disasters. They would find a way through this too, or they would die trying. Commander David Torres, Earth's finest pilot, prepared his squadron for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. If the talks failed, if the architects attacked, his ships would be the first line of defense. They would buy the evacuation ships time to escape, carrying what remained of humanity to distant colonies. Torres was 30, 2 years old, with a wife and young daughter. He recorded messages for them. Messages to be delivered if he did not return. He told them he loved them. He told them to be brave. He did not tell them that his mission was hopeless. That his ships would last maybe minutes against the architect fleet. Some truths were too heavy to share. The architects crossed the solar system faster than should have been possible. They ignored Jupiter, passed Mars without slowing, and entered Earth's orbit exactly 7 days after their first message. 50 massive ships arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the planet. Each ship was positioned above a major city: New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Cairo, Moscow, Sydney, and dozens more. Billions of people looked up and saw alien vessels blocking out the sun. The ships were beautiful and terrifying, like sculptures created by a mad god. They did not fire, did not move, just waited with infinite patience. President Williams and his delegation were transported to the lunar station, where the meeting would take place. The architects had chosen neutral ground, away from Earth, but close enough to show their power. The station's main conference room had been modified to accommodate beings of different sizes and atmospheric requirements. Williams wore a formal suit that felt ridiculous now. He wondered what you wore to meet beings that could end your civilization. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. This was it. The moment that would define humanity's future. The architects arrived without ceremony. They simply appeared in the room, their technology making a mockery of basic physics. There were 5 of them, each one different. The first looked almost humanoid, but was 9 feet tall with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed with inner fire. The second was serpentine, floating in the air without visible means of support. The third appeared to be made of living crystal that shifted colors constantly. The fourth was hidden inside a suit of armor that hummed with barely contained energy. The fifth was the most disturbing. A mass of tentacles surrounding a central core that might have been a head, or might have been something else entirely. The leader, the stone, skinned giant, spoke in a voice that resonated in everyone's bones. It introduced itself as Architect Prime, voice of the Eternal Council. It had witnessed the birth and death of 1,000 species. It had seen civilizations rise from nothing and fall into dust. It had protected this region of space for longer than human history had existed. And now it had to decide what to do about the infestation called humanity. The word, infestation, hung in the air like poison. Williams felt anger rise in his chest, but he forced it down.